The woman behind the counter held my husband's ring like it was a piece of trash. $200, maybe, she said, laughing. My son didn't even look up from his phone. The air inside the Atlanta pawn shop felt heavy, like it held the weight of 1,000 desperate decisions. The lights overhead buzzed and flickered, casting shadows across rows of forgotten jewelry, guitars with broken strings, and televisions nobody wanted anymore. I stood at the counter, my daughter-in-law Tiffany beside me, watching her turn my husband's ring over in her fingers like it was nothing. Like it wasn't the last piece of Robert I had left. "It's pretty, I guess," she said, holding it up to the light. "For costume jewelry. Maybe we can get $200 for it, Max." She laughed. Not a kind laugh. The kind that said she'd already decided it was worthless. My son David stood 3 feet away, scrolling through his phone. His thumb moved across the screen, steady and unbothered. He didn't look up. Didn't defend me, didn't say a word. I felt the familiar burn behind my eyes. The same feeling I got when they forgot to invite me to Thanksgiving dinner 2 years ago. The same feeling when they dropped their kids at my door without asking, disappearing for the weekend while I canceled my own plans. The same feeling when Tiffany said, "You're retired, you have time," like my life was theirs to organize. I'd become a resource, a bank, a babysitter, not a mother, not a person. The appraiser behind the counter reached for the ring. He was older, maybe 60, with reading glasses hanging from a chain around his neck. He took it from Tiffany without a word and held it under the light. Then his face changed. He pulled out a small cloth and polished the stone carefully, like it might break. He reached for a loop, pressing it to his eye, and studied the ring for what felt like a full minute. His breath caught. He looked up at me, then at Tiffany, then back at me. His hands trembled slightly as he set the ring down on a velvet mat. "Ma'am," he said, his voice low and urgent, "may I speak with you in my private office?" Tiffany frowned. "What? Why? Just tell us what it's worth." The appraiser ignored her. His eyes stayed locked on mine. "This is not costume jewelry," he said quietly. "This is not a garnet. Ma'am, I need to speak with you privately, right now." David's phone finally stopped moving. Tiffany's mouth hung open. The appraiser looked at me, then at them, his voice dropping to a whisper. "This changes everything. They valued 40 years at $200. If your family's respect came with a price tag, would you pay? Subscribe. You'll want to see where this leads. If you won't, tell me why below." The appraiser's hands shook as he closed the office door behind us. The room was small, lined with filing cabinets and framed certificates on the walls. A single desk lamp cast a circle of light across his workspace. He gestured for me to sit, but he remained standing. He picked up the ring again, turning it slowly under the lamp. "Ma'am, what I'm about to tell you is going to sound impossible," he said. His voice was steady now, professional. "This isn't a garnet. This is a Padparadscha sapphire. Do you know what that is?" I shook my head. My throat felt tight. "It's one of the rarest gemstones in the world," he continued. "Rarer than diamonds. They're only found in a few places. Sri Lanka, Madagascar, Tanzania. The color is unique, that blend of orange and pink. It's why they're so valuable." He set the ring down and pulled a thick binder from his shelf. He flipped through pages of photographs and documentation, stopping on a glossy image of a ring that looked exactly like mine. "This stone," he said, tapping the photo, "is called the Georgia Sunburst. It was sold at a Geneva auction in 1985 for $300,000. It vanished after that sale. No one knew where it went." He looked at me, his expression serious. "Until now." The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the desk. "How much?" I whispered. "At least $4 million, he said. "Possibly more, depending on the auction house and the buyer." $4 million. The words didn't make sense. They hung in the air like a foreign language. I thought of Robert, my quiet, simple husband who taught history at the community college, who wore the same brown jacket for 15 years, who clipped coupons and made coffee at home instead of buying it. I remembered the day he gave me the ring, our 25th anniversary. We'd driven out to Stone Mountain and watched the sunset. The sky had been that exact shade of orange, deep and glowing, like fire. He'd slipped the ring on my finger and said, "The color reminded me of you, warm, steady, beautiful." I'd kissed him and never taken it off. He knew. He'd always known. Back in the main room, Tiffany's face had drained of color. David's phone was on the counter, forgotten. They both stared at me like they were seeing me for the first time, but David's expression wasn't concern. It wasn't remorse. It was calculation. His eyes locked onto mine, and I saw it clearly. He wasn't seeing his mother. He was seeing money, seeing the house renovations he wanted, the car Tiffany had been begging for, the vacation they'd been planning. He was seeing 4 million reasons to care about me again, and that's when I knew exactly what I had to do. 43 years. He knew. He always knew. What would you do if the person who humiliated you just realized they made a $4 million mistake? I didn't answer their calls that night. I sat in the dark, the ring heavy on my finger, and I let myself remember every single betrayal. The house was silent. The kind of silence that presses against your ears and makes you hear your own heartbeat. I didn't turn on the lights. I didn't need to. I knew every corner of this place. Every crack in the ceiling, every stain on the carpet. I'd lived here for 32 years, raised David here, buried Robert from here. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. David's name lit up the screen. I watched it ring until it stopped. Then it started again. Then again. I powered it off. The ring caught the streetlight coming through the window, glowing faint orange in the darkness. I let the memories come. David at 18, acceptance letter to Georgia State in his hand, crying because we couldn't afford the tuition. Me working double shifts at the hospital, my feet aching so badly I could barely stand. But I'd smiled and told him not to worry. I'd told him I'd take care of it, and I had. David at 27, sitting at this same table, telling me he'd found the perfect house in Buckhead. Telling me the down payment was just out of reach, asking if I could help, just this once. I'd cashed in my retirement bonds, $50,000, everything Robert and I had saved. I'd told him it was a gift, that I wanted him to have it. And I had. The forgotten Mother's Day dinners, the calls that went unreturned, the grandkids I only saw when they needed a babysitter, the casual cruelty of Tiffany's comments. It's not like you have plans. You're retired. You have time. We thought you'd want to help. The slow, quiet erosion of respect. I stood and walked to Robert's desk in the corner. It had sat untouched since his death 5 years ago. I'd cleaned out the drawers a dozen times, sorting through old lesson plans and grade books, keeping what mattered and donating the rest. But tonight, something pulled me toward it. I opened the bottom drawer, the one that always stuck. I pulled harder than usual and it jerked free. That's when I felt it. A seam in the wood, a ridge that shouldn't be there. My fingers traced the edge, finding a small notch. I pressed it. The bottom of the drawer lifted with a soft click. Underneath was a hidden compartment. Inside was an envelope. My name was written across the front in Robert's careful handwriting. I pulled it out, my hands trembling. Robert's desk sat in the corner, untouched since his death. Something pulled me toward it. I'd cleaned every drawer 100 times, or so I thought. One moment of clarity can undo decades of being small. Subscribe now. What comes next will rewrite everything you thought you knew about quiet strength. My fingers found the seam by accident. A false bottom in the drawer I'd opened 1,000 times. Inside was an envelope with my name in Robert's handwriting. I lifted it carefully, like it might disappear if I moved too fast. The paper was thick, expensive, the kind Robert never used. Beneath the envelope were other things, documents, certificates with official seals, photographs of jewelry I recognized. I pulled everything out and spread it across the desk. There were 3 GIA certificates, Gemological Institute of America, Each one had a photograph, a detailed description, and an estimated value. The first was for my ring, the Georgia Sunburst. Estimated value, $4 to $6 million depending on market conditions. The second was for a Victorian brooch I'd inherited from Robert's mother. I'd worn it twice, maybe 3 times, to church on Easter. I thought it was pretty, but old-fashioned. According to the certificate, it contained a natural blue sapphire worth $800,000. The third was for a strand of pearls I kept in my jewelry box. I'd worn them to David's wedding. They'd felt too formal, too heavy. The certificate said they were South Sea pearls, each one perfectly matched, worth $300,000. I stared at the papers, my mind struggling to catch up. Robert had left me a fortune, a hidden, carefully documented fortune. There was more. A handwritten inventory in Robert's neat script, purchase dates, provenance, projections of future value, notes about auction houses and private buyers. He'd been planning this for years. At the bottom of the stack was a letter. The paper had yellowed slightly at the edges. It was dated 2 weeks before his death. My hands shook as I unfolded it. My dearest Martha, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I'm sorry I couldn't tell you in person. I was afraid you'd argue with me. Tell me it was too much. Insist we sell everything and live more comfortably, but I knew better. I knew you'd give it all away if I asked. You'd give it to David. You'd give it to anyone who needed it more than you. So I kept it secret. These pieces are yours, not ours, yours. I bought them over 30 years, piece by piece, investing what I could. I told you I was buying books and old maps for my research. Technically, I wasn't lying. I was researching gemstones. The total value is between $6 and $8 million. I've arranged everything so that it's legally yours alone. David has no claim to it. No one does. This is for your third act, my love. Live it for you. They will not understand sacrifice. They will not value what you've given. Protect yourself. I've made sure you can. All my love, always Robert. The paper crinkled as I folded it closed. I could still smell his cologne in the fibers, faint but unmistakable, even after 5 years. My phone buzzed. I'd turned it back on without thinking. 7 missed calls from David, 12 texts from Tiffany. The last one read, "We need to talk about the ring. Family comes first, Mom." I smiled for the first time in years. They had no idea what was coming. He knew they would take. He knew I would give. So he built me an escape I didn't know I needed. Have you ever had someone protect you from yourself? The flight to Miami left at dawn. I didn't tell anyone I was leaving. I just locked the door and walked away. I'd never flown first class before. Robert and I had always bought the cheapest tickets, the ones with 2 connections and middle seats. We'd told ourselves it didn't matter. The destination was what counted. But sitting in that wide leather seat, a glass of champagne I didn't drink on the tray beside me, I understood what Robert had been trying to give me. Not luxury, dignity. The GIA certificates sat in my lap tucked inside a folder. I'd read them so many times on the drive to the airport that I'd memorized every word. The plane rose above Atlanta, and I watched my old life shrink below me. The highways, the suburbs, the house where I'd spent 32 years making myself smaller so everyone else could grow. I didn't cry, I didn't feel sad, I felt awake. Miami appeared through the window 2 hours later, the city glittering against Biscayne Bay. The water so blue, it didn't look real. I'd never been to Florida, never had a reason to go. Now I had 6 million reasons. The wealth management office was on the 40th floor of a glass tower downtown. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the ocean. The furniture was sleek and modern, all chrome and leather. A woman in a sharp gray suit met me in the lobby. She was younger than I expected, maybe 45, with dark hair pulled back and eyes that didn't miss anything. "Mrs. Hayes," she said, extending her hand. "I'm Adriana Morales. Thank you for coming." Her handshake was firm, confident. She looked at me like I mattered. We sat in her office and I spread the certificates across her desk. She studied them in silence, her expression unreadable. Then she looked up at me. "How long have you known about these?" she asked. "3 days," I said. She nodded slowly. "And your family? They know about the ring, not the rest." "Do you want them to know?" I met her eyes. "No." Adriana leaned back in her chair, her fingers steepled under her chin. "Then let's build you a portfolio that reflects your value," she said, "not their expectations." We spent the next 3 hours going through options: private auctions for the sapphire, discreet sales for the brooch and pearls, offshore trusts to protect the assets, a foundation structure to direct the wealth where I wanted it to go. Adriana didn't ask if I was sure, didn't suggest I talk to my son first, didn't treat me like I needed permission. She treated me like a client, like someone who knew what she wanted. By the time we finished, the sun was setting over the bay, turning the water the same deep orange as the Georgia sunburst. Adriana slid a phone across the desk. It was sleek and black, still in its box. "New number," she said. "New life. Your son's calls will never reach you again unless you allow it." I picked it up. It felt lighter than I expected. Adriana smiled. "You're free now, Mrs. Hayes. The only question is what you're going to do with it." I looked at the phone in my hand, then at the ring on my finger. I already knew the answer. Charleston smelled like salt and history. The lawyer's office overlooked the harbor. She didn't smile when I told her what I wanted. She just started writing. I'd flown in from Miami that morning, the new phone Adriana gave me still unfamiliar in my hand. The address Eleanor Finch had provided led me to a brick building in the historic district, surrounded by cobblestone streets and oak trees, so old their branches bent toward the ground. Her office was on the 3rd floor, wood-paneled walls lined with leather-bound law books. The window behind her desk framed sailboats moving slowly across the water. Eleanor was younger than I expected, maybe 50, with silver hair cut short and reading glasses perched on her nose. She wore a navy suit and no jewelry except a simple watch. "Mrs. Hayes," she said, shaking my hand, "Adriana speaks highly of you." "She told me you help people who need protection from their families," I said. Eleanor nodded. "More often than you'd think. Please sit." I sat in the leather chair across from her desk and told her everything: the pawn shop, the ring, David and Tiffany, the years of giving until there was nothing left of me. She listened without interruption, her pen moving steadily across a yellow legal pad. She didn't look shocked or sympathetic. She looked focused. When I finished, she set down her pen and looked at me directly. "What do you want?" she asked. "I want them out of my will," I said. "Completely. I want to make sure they can never claim they deserve a piece of what Robert left me." "Done," Eleanor said. "What else?" "I want to create a foundation for women's education. Everything goes there." She nodded, making notes. "And if they challenge the will?" "I want it to cost them," I said. "I want it to cost them everything." Eleanor smiled for the first time. It wasn't warm. It was the smile of someone who'd been waiting to write these exact words. "We'll add a no contest clause," she said. "Any legal challenge automatically disqualifies the challenger and triggers penalty fees. They'll pay their own legal costs, and yours out of what would have been their share, which will be 0. She wrote for another 20 minutes, asking questions about accounts, assets, properties. I answered each one, watching the scratch of her fountain pen on thick paper. Each stroke felt like cutting a rope. Each signature felt like closing a door. "Your son will hire a lawyer," Eleanor said, looking up. "They always do, but he won't win. These documents are bulletproof." I felt a weight lift that I'd carried since David was born. The weight of always putting him first, always sacrificing, always bending myself smaller so he could grow. Eleanor gathered the papers and tapped them against the desk to align them. "There's one more thing," she said. "David's mortgage. Adriana mentioned you were the co-signer." I nodded. I put down the down payment and co-signed so they could get approved. Eleanor's pen moved again. The house you funded? It's about to become very expensive for them. She signed away 40 years of guilt in 20 minutes. If you could rewrite your inheritance with one pen stroke, what would you change? The first voicemail came 3 days after the pawn shop. David's voice was different, softer. He called me Mama for the first time in a decade. I was back in my Miami hotel suite, sitting by the window with a view of the bay. The sunset turned the water orange, the same color as the Georgia sunburst on my finger. My old phone sat on the table, screen lighting up every few minutes. I'd kept it charged just to see what they would do. I played the first voicemail. "Mama," David's voice said, warm and apologetic. "I'm so sorry about what happened at the pawn shop. Tiffany didn't mean anything by it. We just didn't know the ring was valuable. We were only trying to help. Can you call me back? I love you." I deleted it and played the next one. "Mom, it's me again. Please call. We need to talk about the ring. There are decisions to make, and we should make them together, as a family." The third voicemail was from Tiffany, her voice sweet as honey. "Martha, honey, I feel just terrible about what I said. I didn't realize how special that ring was. You know, I think of you like my own mother, right? We're family, and family shares everything. Call us when you get a chance." I played through all 12 voicemails. They followed a pattern. First came the apologies, the soft voices, the reassurances of love. Then came the questions. Where was I? Why wasn't I answering? Was I okay? Then came the demands. "Mom, this is ridiculous. You can't just disappear. We deserve to know what else you're hiding. Call me back. Now." The last voicemail was David again, his voice tight with anger. "You're being selfish. That ring belonged to Dad, and I'm his son. I have a right to be part of this decision. If you don't call me back by tomorrow, I'm getting a lawyer. Family comes first, Mom, or it should." I set the phone down and opened my laptop. I'd been keeping records for years without realizing it. Bank statements going back 2 decades, receipts for the down payment on their house, copies of checks I'd written for car repairs, kitchen remodels, emergency funds that were never emergencies. I opened a spreadsheet and started adding it up. David's college tuition, $68,000. Down payment on the Buckhead house, $50,000. Monthly support after David lost his job, $200 a month for 18 months. That was $21,600. Car repairs, furniture, the loan for Tiffany's boutique that never opened, every birthday party I'd funded, every vacation I'd subsidized. The final number was $347,000. $347,000 over 40 years. And they thought I owed them more. I closed the laptop and picked up the old phone. The screen glowed blue in the darkroom. I held the power button until it turned off. The silence was perfect. I opened my laptop and began typing, not a response to them, a letter. The final one they would ever receive from me. I started the letter with David and Tiffany. Not dear, not my beloved son, just their names. The hotel room was quiet except for the hum of the air conditioner and the soft click of my fingers on the keyboard. I'd written 1,000 letters in my life. Thank you notes, birthday cards, letters to David at summer camp when he was 10, telling him how much I missed him. This one was different. This one was the truth, David and Tiffany. By the time you read this, I will be gone. You will not be able to reach me. You will not be able to find me. This is intentional. I want to make sure you understand exactly why. I typed steadily, my fingers, sure. Every sentence felt like removing a stone from my chest. Over the past 40 years, I have provided the following financial support: college tuition and expenses, $68,000 down payment for your home, $50,000 monthly financial support, 2019-20 to 20, $21,600 car repairs, furniture and miscellaneous expenses, $34,800 loan for boutique business, never repaid, $15,000 emergency funds and family expenses, $156,00 total, $347,000. This does not include the 1,040 hours of unpaid childcare I provided over the past 3 years. At the average rate for professional childcare in Atlanta, 25-hour, that equals $46,000. Grand total, $393,000. I stopped and read what I'd written. The numbers looked cold on the screen, clinical, but they were real. I provided this support because I loved you, because I believed family meant sacrifice, because I thought if I gave enough, you would value what I gave. I was wrong. 3 days ago, you valued my husband's ring, the last piece of him I owned, at $200. You laughed about it. You treated me like I was an inconvenience. That ring is worth $4 million. But even if it had been worth $20, it was mine, my memory, my choice. And you treated it like garbage. I have liquidated all of my assets. I have changed my will. My entire estate will fund the Robert and Martha Foundation for Women's Education. It will help women who want to build their own lives, not live off someone else's sacrifice. You will not receive a single dollar from my estate. Not now, not ever. If you choose to challenge this legally, you will lose, and you will be responsible for paying both your legal fees and mine. You valued my life sacrifice at the price of a used appliance. I have adjusted my final inheritance accordingly. Do not look for me. Do not contact me. I have nothing more to give you. Martha. I read it 3 times, changed nothing. I printed it on the hotel's business center printer, 2 pages of simple white paper. I signed it in blue ink, the same color Robert had used for his letter to me. The hum of the printer felt like a verdict being read. Each page emerging felt final. I sealed the envelope and called a courier service. I need same-day delivery to Atlanta, I said. Signature required. I wanted to know the exact moment their world collapsed. 40 years in 2 pages. What's the one line you would make sure was in this letter? While the letter was in transit, I erased myself from their lives with surgical precision. I flew back to Atlanta early the next morning, not to see them, to finish what I'd started. The bank opened at 9. I was waiting at the door when they unlocked it. I need to close several accounts, I told the manager, a woman named Patricia, who'd handled my banking for 15 years. She led me to her desk, confusion crossing her face when I handed her the list. The joint savings account, I said. Close it. Are you sure? Your son has access to that account for emergencies. I'm sure. Close it. Patricia typed slowly, glancing at me between keystrokes. There's currently $14,000 in that account. Transfer it to my personal account, the one only I can access. She nodded and continued typing. I also need to redirect my pension deposits, I said. They're currently going into an account David can see. I want them going to a new account, one he doesn't know exists. Patricia opened a new account on the spot. I watched her type the new routing information, each keystroke another thread cut. The credit card, I continued. The one I gave David for emergencies. Cancel it. Patricia pulled up the account. There's a balance of $3,200. Pay it from my personal account, then cancel it. Mrs. Hayes, is everything all right? I looked at her. Patricia had helped me set up David's college fund 20 years ago. She'd processed the check for his house down payment. She'd seen every sacrifice I'd made. Everything is fine, I said, for the first time in a long time. She nodded slowly and kept typing. I updated my mailing address to a P.O. box in Carmel, California, a place David would never think to look. I changed my medical power of attorney from David to Eleanor Finch. If something happened to me, he would have no say in my care. I removed David and Tiffany from my life insurance beneficiaries. The policy would now pay out to the foundation. Each document required a signature. Each signature required a witness. The bank notary watched me sign, her stamp coming down with a satisfying thunk on each page. Patricia printed the final confirmation and slid it across the desk. This is permanent. she said quietly. Once these accounts are closed, reopening them requires both parties to agree. I met her eyes. That's exactly the point. I walked out of the bank with a folder full of closure documents, 30 minutes inside, 40 years erased. My phone buzzed. A notification from the courier service. Package delivered. Signed by Tiffany Hart. Time: 3:47 p.m. I was 2,400 miles away when their world ended. The courier confirmed delivery at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. I was 2,400 miles away watching the Pacific Ocean when their world ended. I'd driven straight from the Atlanta bank to the airport and caught the first flight to San Francisco. From there, I rented a car and drove south along Highway 1, the coast road that hugs the edge of California. Carmel by the Sea appeared through the fog like something from a postcard. White sand beaches, cypress trees bent by the wind, houses with flower boxes and ocean views. I'd never been here before. Robert had always wanted to visit. We'd talked about it for years. Someday, we'd said, when we have time, when we can afford it. Now I had both. I was walking along the beach when my phone buzzed. The new phone, the one only 3 people had the number to. The courier app notification lit up the screen. Delivered. Signed by Tiffany Hart. I stopped walking. The cold Pacific wind hit my face, carrying the smell of salt and seaweed. The Georgia sunburst caught the afternoon light, glowing orange against the gray sky. I closed my eyes and let myself see it. Tiffany at the front door, signing for the envelope. Her confusion when she saw no return address. The way she'd tear it open, expecting something simple. The moment she started reading, her face going pale, her hands shaking, the paper falling from her fingers. David coming home from work, finding her in the kitchen, the letter spread across the table. His expression shifting from confusion to anger to something close to panic. The frantic calls they'd make. The voicemails I'd never hear because the number was disconnected. The emails I'd never read because I'd changed my address. The drive to my house, finding it empty. The neighbors who wouldn't know where I'd gone. The desperate visit to the bank, Patricia telling them calmly that all accounts had been closed. By me. Legally. The call to a lawyer, the consultation fee they couldn't afford, the news that there was nothing they could do. I opened my eyes. The ocean stretched endless and gray before me. Waves crashed against the rocks, steady and unbothered. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel angry. I felt free. My new phone rang. Unknown number. For a second, my heart seized. Had they found me already? Then I saw the area code. Charleston. Eleanor. I answered. "They hired a lawyer," she said. Her voice carried the satisfaction of someone who'd predicted this exact move. "He's already making mistakes." "They hired a lawyer," Eleanor said, her voice carrying the satisfaction of someone who'd predicted this exact move. "He's already making mistakes." I was sitting on my new deck in Carmel, watching the fog roll in over the Pacific. The air was cool and damp, nothing like the humid Georgia summers I'd known my whole life. "What kind of mistakes?" I asked. "He sent me a letter claiming undue influence and financial elder abuse," Eleanor said. I could hear the smile in her voice. "He's arguing that Adriana and I manipulated you into changing your will while you were in a vulnerable emotional state." The irony hit me hard. The people who had spent years treating me like a walking ATM were now claiming to be my protectors. "Can he prove it?" I asked. "No," Eleanor said simply, "because it's not true, and I have documentation that proves it. Bank statements showing 40 years of one-way transfers, voicemails you saved from their calls, witness statements from Adriana, from me, from Patricia at the bank, all confirming you were clear-minded, informed, and in complete control of every decision." She paused, and I heard papers shuffling. "The best part?" she continued. "His letter triggered the no contest clause in your will. By challenging it, David automatically disqualified himself from any future claim to your estate. Even if you changed your mind tomorrow and wanted to give him something, the clause prevents it. How much will this cost him? I asked. His lawyer charges $300 an hour. Based on the letter he sent, he's already billed at least 20 hours of research and document preparation. That's $6,000. And we haven't even responded yet. I thought about the house in Buckhead, the renovated kitchen with the marble countertops Tiffany had insisted on, the BMW in the driveway, all of it funded by loans they could barely afford, propped up by the monthly support I used to provide. What about the mortgage? I asked. Eleanor's voice shifted, becoming more serious. You co-signed, which means you're legally responsible if they default. But it also means you have legal standing to request financial disclosures. I've already filed a motion to remove you as co-signer based on the changed circumstances. Will it work? It'll take time. 6 months, maybe a year. But yes, the bank will either require them to refinance without you or they'll need to sell. I looked out at the ocean. A seal surfaced near the rocks, its head bobbing in the waves before disappearing again. There's one more thing, Eleanor said. I've filed a restraining order. David cannot contact you directly. No calls, no emails, no showing up at your door. If he violates it, he'll face criminal charges. I felt something release in my chest, a tension I'd been carrying so long I'd forgotten it was there. Thank you, I said. You're welcome, Eleanor replied. Now go enjoy your California sunset. You've earned it. They tried to use the law to take what was never theirs. Has anyone ever weaponized your love against you? 6 months after I disappeared, the Robert and Martha Foundation awarded its first scholarship. The recipient was a 47-year-old woman going back to nursing school after leaving an abusive marriage. The ceremony was held in a small community center in Oakland, about 2 hours north of Carmel. The room smelled like coffee and floor cleaner, the walls decorated with construction paper cutouts made by the kids who used the space for after-school programs. 20 people sat in folding chairs. Most were women. Some had brought their children. I sat in the back row wearing jeans and a simple sweater. No one knew who I was. The foundation director, a woman named Claire who'd helped me set everything up, introduced me as one of our generous donors. That was fine with me. This wasn't about recognition. It was about what came next. Elena Santos walked to the front of the room when her name was called. She was small, maybe 5 feet tall, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail and hands that looked like they'd worked hard for a long time. Claire handed her the scholarship packet, a folder containing the award letter, financial details, and program information. This scholarship covers your full tuition for the nursing program at Oakland Community College, Claire explained. It also includes a stipend for books, childcare, and living expenses for the next 2 years. Elena's hand shook as she opened the folder. She read the first page, then the second. Her eyes filled with tears. I don't understand, she said quietly. This is everything. This is my whole life. You earned it, Claire said. The foundation exists to help women who want to rebuild, women who've sacrificed, women who deserve a second chance. Elena looked up, searching the room. Her eyes passed over me without recognition. Who do I thank? She asked. The founders believed education should speak for itself, Claire said. They didn't want gratitude, they wanted results. After the ceremony, Elena approached me near the coffee table. She didn't know who I was, but I was standing alone, and maybe that made me safe. Can I ask you something? She said. Of course. Do you think it's too late? She asked. I'm 47. By the time I finish the program, I'll be almost 50. Everyone else in my class will be 20 years younger. I looked at her calloused hands, the worry lines around her eyes, the hope fighting with doubt in her expression. I thought about Robert, about the life he'd built in secret, protecting me from my own generosity, about the ring on my finger that had bought me freedom at 68. It's never too late, I said. I'm 68, and I'm just starting my third act." Elena smiled. She thanked me and walked away, clutching the folder like it was the most valuable thing she'd ever held. Claire came over and stood beside me. "We have funding for 11 more scholarships this year," she said, "all because of the auction." The Georgia Sunburst had sold for $4.2 million. 10% had gone to overhead. The rest was changing lives. As I left the ceremony, my phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. It started with, "Grandma?" Marcus was 16 when I left. I'd missed his last 2 birthdays because I wasn't invited. Now he was texting me. My hands shook as I opened the message. "Grandma, it's Marcus. I know what they did. I'm sorry. Can we talk?" I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the reply button. My first instinct was to say yes. My second instinct was to call Eleanor. I chose the second instinct. "Don't respond yet," Eleanor said when I explained. "Not until we establish ground rules. He could be acting on his parents' behalf." "He's 17, I said. "He's still a kid." "Legally, yes, but he's old enough to be used as a messenger. Let me run a background check first. I'll call you back in an hour." The hour felt like a week. I walked along the beach, the Georgia sunburst heavy on my finger, the ocean wind cold against my face. When Eleanor called back, her tone had softened. "He's been working part-time at a grocery store for the past year," she said, "saving for college. His grades are good, 3.7 GPA. No social media posts about you or the situation. Nothing that suggests he's being coached by his parents." "So what do I do?" I asked. "Video call. Neutral territory. No promises. See what he wants." I texted Marcus back that evening. "I'm willing to talk. Video call tomorrow at 3 p.m.? His response came in seconds. "Yes, thank you." The next day, I set up my laptop on the kitchen table, the ocean visible through the window behind me. At exactly 3 o'clock, the call connected. Marcus appeared on screen. He'd grown. His face had lost the roundness of childhood, replaced by the sharp angles of someone becoming a man. His hair was longer than I remembered. His eyes were Robert's eyes. "Hi, Grandma," he said. His voice cracked slightly. "Hi, Marcus." We sat in silence for a moment. He looked nervous, his eyes darting off screen. "I'm sorry," he blurted, "for what they did, for what they said, for how they treated you. I didn't know about the ring until after you left, but I knew about everything else. How they talked about you, how they used you. I should have said something." "You were a kid," I said. "It wasn't your responsibility." "I'm not a kid anymore," he said. "And I need you to know something. I'm not like them. I don't want their money. I don't want their help. I've been working, saving up. I'm applying to colleges on my own." "Your father won't help?" I asked. Marcus laughed bitterly. "He can't. They're broke. The bank's threatening to foreclose on the house. Tiffany had to close her boutique. Dad's working 2 jobs. They're barely keeping it together." I should have felt satisfaction. Instead, I felt tired. "What do you want from me, Marcus?" I asked. He looked directly into the camera. "I want to know if you're okay. That's all. Just, are you okay?" Something in my chest tightened. "Can you teach me what Grandpa taught you?" he asked suddenly. "About value? About knowing when to walk away? Sometimes the next generation breaks the cycle. Would you give him a chance?" I didn't write to David or Tiffany again, but I wrote to Marcus. This time, the letter started with, "My dearest grandson." I sat at my kitchen table in Carmel, the Pacific stretching gray and endless outside my window. The morning fog hadn't burned off yet, and the air smelled like salt and coffee. I'd bought good stationery for this letter, heavy cream paper with matching envelopes, the kind Robert used to use for important correspondence. My dearest grandson, your grandfather was the quietest, wealthy man I've ever known. He never talked about money, never showed off, never used what he had to control people. He taught himself about gemstones by reading library books and attending estate sales. He bought pieces carefully over decades, always thinking about value and beauty, never about status. He built a fortune not because he was greedy, but because he was preparing. He saw a day coming when I would need protection, even from my own generosity. I want to teach you what he taught me, but first you need to understand something important. I paused, choosing my words carefully. There's a difference between giving from love and giving from guilt. Your father doesn't know the difference. Neither does Tiffany. They took everything I gave and still felt entitled to more. I don't want you to hate them, but I do want you to be free from them. So here is my offer. I have created an education trust in your name. It will become accessible when you turn 25, but only if you meet two conditions. First, you must be financially independent from your parents. You can accept help from others, scholarships, loans, grants, but not from them. Not $1. Second, you must maintain genuine contact with me, not because you have to, not because money depends on it, but because you want to. If you meet these conditions, the trust will fund your education completely. Undergraduate, graduate school if you choose. No debt, no strings. The trust is managed by Eleanor Finch. She will verify the conditions are met before releasing funds. I'm not punishing you by requiring independence from your parents. I'm protecting you. Their financial decisions are their responsibility, not yours. If you want to learn what your grandfather taught me, we'll start with something simple. Value isn't about price. It's about knowing what matters and protecting it fiercely. The first thing that matters is you. The second is your future. Everything else is negotiable. With love always, Grandma Martha. I signed the letter with the pen Robert had used for his letter to me. The weight of it felt heavier than the ring ever had. I mailed it the next morning with a separate package. Inside was a small leather journal. Robert's handwriting filled the first 50 pages. Investment notes, life lessons, the manual for building wealth without losing yourself. A year after I left, I woke to my first sunrise as someone who owed nothing to anyone. The Georgia sunburst caught the light on my nightstand. I didn't need to wear it anymore. I carried my coffee out to the deck. The California coast was just waking up, the sky turning from gray to pink to gold. Seabirds called to each other over the water. The air was cool but not cold. For a moment, I let myself remember. The pawn shop, Tiffany's laugh, David's phone, the appraiser's trembling hands. But the memory didn't hurt anymore. It was just information, data from another life. My phone buzzed on the table. A message from Marcus, a photo of an acceptance letter to UC Berkeley, earned entirely on his own merit. Full scholarship, no help from his parents. I smiled and texted back, "Your grandfather would be proud." The foundation had awarded 32 scholarships now. 50 more were in the pipeline for next year. Women going back to school, women leaving bad situations, women building lives they chose instead of lives they inherited. I had new friends here. Women my age who met on Thursday mornings for book club and Sunday afternoons for beach walks. They knew me as Martha, not someone's mother, not someone's burden, just Martha, who liked mystery novels and couldn't stand romantic comedies, who drank her coffee black and always forgot to put on sunscreen. They didn't know about the ring. They didn't know about David. They didn't need to. I picked up the Georgia sunburst from the nightstand. The stone caught the morning light, glowing that impossible shade of orange-pink that had given it its name. Robert had chosen it because it reminded him of Georgia sunsets. But sitting here, watching the California sun rise over the Pacific, I understood something he'd known all along. The value wasn't in the stone. It was in what the stone had bought me. Not things, not comfort, freedom. The right to live for myself, the right to say no, the right to walk away from people who valued me at $200. I'd spent 68 years being small so other people could be big, being convenient so other people could be comfortable, being generous so other people could be greedy. I was done being small. I placed the Georgia sunburst in its velvet box. Tomorrow, I'd take it to the Foundation's office, not to hide it, but to preserve it. The archive would tell its story, where it came from, what it meant, how it changed everything. But today, I just wanted to sit on my deck and watch the sunrise. For the first time in 68 years, I was excited about tomorrow.